This part of my house has rock-solid walls. This part doesn't even have all real walls. Like many older homes, an add-on was built around the late 1960s, and in doing some mild demolition, I discovered a lot of surprises, which has turned this painting project into a full renovation. So, join me in a journey of discovery, research, and a lot of work to make this the most useful room in the house, as it was intended. Originally, this sunroom was a good part of the reason I bought this house. Picking up on popularity in the 1900s, these were built to be a flexible room, easily changing to fit the needs of the homeowners. Whether casual living, dining, playroom, greenhouse, or project space, this extension of the house provided the square footage needed. Mine has lots of windows, a wall of shelving, and a wood-burning stove. Just a nice spot to spend time. I knew it needed some work, as does the rest of the house, especially when it came to painting. A previous owner clearly kept a dog in here, and they did a number on the doors and woodwork, which was clear at first glance. The room is over a crawl space instead of a basement, and structural inspection showed that the wall with the fireplace needs to be reinforced from the outside, as it's listed a bit. I didn't exactly expect a pristine or even hardly built structure like the rest of the house. What I did not notice until later, though, was that all of the nice shelves were extremely shallow, just over 6 inches. Enough for a small paperback, maybe, but I have a lot of beefy books. Normally, shelves are over 9 inches. After going through a range of absurd ways to extend things by 3 inches, I realized they probably just had to go. Thankfully, upon measuring, I discovered that the IKEA Billy bookcases fit perfectly into the space. 2 wide and 1 narrow per side, and an extension on top. There's probably 2 or 3 inches on the sides, and top left after that, depending on the status of the ceiling. I quite stupidly placed an order for those just a little after moving in. I say stupidly because the sunroom was essentially the dump room for moving boxes, both full and empty, and it literally took 3 months to clear enough space for any renovations to even happen. Originally, this was going to just be a casual living and dining area, but as I was attempting to organize my sewing room upstairs, it became apparent it wasn't going to fit in that space without a fight, and that the way I like to store my fabrics fits perfectly onto the bookcase standard size. So no longer was it a when I get to it casual space, it was the space that I needed to finish in order to finish moving in and have a functional house, and the one with the most work needed. And I'm not going to lie, much like Bailey, I am food motivated. That's why I'm so happy that the sponsor of this video is Wild Grain. With all of this work going on, I don't exactly have time or energy for baking, but sometimes I just need a cookie, or a flaky croissant, or fresh sourdough bread, or pasta, or, this is why I love Wild Grain. They're the first Bake from Frozen subscription box that offers all of that and more. And they partner with small bakers and pasta makers to provide an amazing array of artisanal options. I've actually been subscribed to their service for years at this point. While my personal favorite is the strawberry rhubarb turnovers, if you're just as excited for fall as I am, they have apple cider donuts. Being able to have sourdough bread straight from the oven in less than half an hour is so helpful for meal planning. And my easy dinner after a long day is their butternut squash and cheese ravioli, along with Parmesan herb biscuits. Their gluten-free list is extensive as well, and they have plant-based options too. You not only choose what type of box is right for you, but you customize all of the items in it. Swap out for your favorite breads or add on more of the things that you love. Honestly, the only thing I need now is a bigger freezer. If you want to check out Wild Grain, be sure to click on my link in the description and use my code to get $30 off your first box, plus you'll get free croissants for life. And they're really good croissants too. Thanks again to Wild Grain for sponsoring this video. The first thing I had to do was get the baseboard heaters removed. They were still hooked up and full of water, despite the boiler not having worked in what was clearly a long time. It was still cold when I moved in, and the room doesn't really seem to need them. They also took up half of the rest of the walls. I did have someone else do that, because after what seemingly random order of pipes to cut was pointed out to me, along with recognizing that I'd have to go into the crawl space after cutting the heaters free to pull the pipes back, that was a hard no. Now I just have some holes in the floor to fill. Oh, and the entire room now needs baseboard and shoe molding because that didn't continue behind the heaters. Honestly, the thin drywall wasn't even mudded or painted, just paper back there. This should have been the first hint. But with that, and enough boxes removed, I had friends visiting for the weekend, so we grabbed crowbars, sledgehammers, and the proper PPE to attempt tearing down the old shelves.
She's diddling.
Oh, you are bending it. You are bending the crowbar.
Oh god, that scared the life out of me.
Oh, sorry, did I not tell you about the spider?
No, it's that. What's the spider? It's rope. It looks like they rope cocked it. I thought it was a dead snake, and I was fair enough. So sad. Not my flesh. Are you recording? I can't record.
MJ, don't include that. Okay, don't, please.
You know that means you've done it, right?
No, I'm dead serious. MJ, don't do it.
Ye olde is affixed. You know what pirate language? Yarn, it be affixed. It be affixed.
How's everybody feeling today?
Yeah!
Better now.
Now, I got sweat dripping down places I didn't know. Definitely taking another shower after this.
Yay!
Yeah, man.
Hold it up.
Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
Oh, well, you break your
Yeah!
fingers.
Doing something for Maggie. Apparently, all you really need to build sturdy shelves is wood that's old enough to be good quality and some extremely randomly placed nails. I knew this from pulling apart one of the other shelves that was in the living room. Thankfully, that one was not attached to the structure, so I managed to save the wood and can rebuild the shelves for something else soon. But the stuff in the sunroom, it was determined to not come loose. And we put some holes in the drywall, trying to convince it. About midway through, the reason became clear. Not only were these built into the ceiling, but they are also literally the ceiling and the wall. Not attached to a wall, they are the wall. Behind the thin wood backs is just the studs and insulation and the siding of the building. Randomly placed studs, too. It took Chrissy and I way too much work to find where they could actually be screwed in to attach. Because yeah, they weren't even attached to the studs at all. They built the bookcases, slid them in, and relied on the ceiling and flooring to hold them. I mean, I figured the ceiling was done after, but not having flooring in a good chunk of the room was not accounted for, especially around the corner where I was not planning to put cabinets. I don't know if there's floor under there or not, we'll figure it out later, but
There's not.
thankfully, the smaller shelf that I pulled from the other corner a few weeks prior did have floor underneath and actual drywall behind it. The floor is not finished, but that's a much easier fix. At this point, I genuinely started to question when building regulations were set in place, but it turns out that's a mostly 1920s thing, post-disasters of fire and molasses. No, I am not joking about that. So theoretically, this was all built to code, and is actually on record being done by a professional. Just clearly not with any expectation of remodeling. Ever. This sent me into a massive redesign of the space. With this now being the sewing room, I needed as much storage as I can get crammed in there. First change was to add a second narrow shelf to hide the non-existent flooring section on the right side. I thought about pulling up the step and seeing if I could move the boards down further and leave the hole under that instead, but just adding more shelves seemed way easier. Also not a bad idea. I already had one upstairs to grab. Secondly, I was going to pull the shelves above the fireplace out so I could have just one nice big space behind the fireplace. But since there's no functional wall behind them, it's much easier to just leave them as is, which meant scraping the old paint off far enough to remove the damaged layers. Whatever the top coat of paint on the shelves and on the windows and the trim was not friendly. It had chipped and was cracking off in so many places. There were little bits of Scotch tape applied in random places around the room that anytime you pulled them off, they pulled a whole bunch of paint with it. And regular paint applied on top of it did not want to go on smoothly. And just to be safe, I have to treat it like it's lead paint, which it has a very high chance of being. Essentially, I didn't want to sand it if I could help it, so I had to remove it in a different way. And this became my first bottomless pit of time and energy. I tried citrus strip on some of the windows first, but that barely made it through the first layer of shiny paint. I then moved to scraping along with a heat gun, which worked well about 75% of the time. For some reason, there were entire random sections on the window that just turned to goo and spread out rather than chip off. After one entire window was done, I realized I'd be about another 2 months on that part of the project alone, with 3 more windows. Also, my shoulders hurt. Thankfully, the worst damage was on the outer trim, so I made a big decision to tear off all of the casings and start over. Most of that went easily, aside from the very last piece. As if in a final curse, I was taking down this last piece, the last piece of trim from this doorway, only to have this pretty much fall on my head from the fact that it was up here, but there is nothing holding this on. It was just pressure fit, I guess. I thought the surprises were done. Which means I was now up to ordering hundreds of feet of moldings for the shelves, walls, windows, doors, and wherever else I seem to be forgetting. Most of it has arrived, but there will be a part 2 on this project with all of that and the big organization. In the meantime, I had to paint in order to finish the shelves enough to then be able to have them set in place. Now, if you don't know, IKEA furniture is usually wrapped in a plastic coating, not painted. So there's a special primer to help regular paint stick to it. Definitely do that step in a well-ventilated space, because I also had started to notice that despite the rest of my house being fairly bug-free, spiders really liked that not real wall. So I paused after the first primer to add paintable caulk around the interiors of the shelves. Oh, and because my brain decided that I wanted the shelves to be a little adjustable, but didn't want to see all of the pre-drilled holes, I went and cut a dowel rod for every hole, glued it in with wood glue, and sanded it down. I am still not convinced this step was worth it at all. Thankfully, I only did that on the top half because the plan is to put doors on the bottom. A little more light and dust protection for most of the fabrics that way. Now, painting a room can be accomplished in a day or two usually. Painting shelves with multiple coats of different paints takes forever. All of the shelves have to be laid out. I only have so much space on tables, so about half of them at a time, and everything covered in the bin primer for plastic. Let it dry for a day, then flip and do the other side of the shelves. I'm not sure doing them permanently in place would have actually been much better, as that's some annoyingly tight quarters to deal with, getting an even coat on. This process then gets repeated in tinted primer, then in paint, then in 2 clear coats for the tops of the shelves to help them not scratch easily. It's been about 3 weeks of painting at this point, almost every single day. Somewhere in there, enough of the green was done that I was able to set everything back in place. It only took minor effort with shims to get them even, though I did previously spend a while sanding down a chunk of the flooring that stuck up a good 1/4 inch or more above anything else. There were all of these loose blocks from under the previous shelves, only some of which were nailed down. I attempted to lay them out in a good design and screw them down for a better base of the shelves that I was putting in. I only had to add a little bit more height to the now angled corner cabinet. That was an absolute mess to get leveled, since it has to match 2 shelves on 2 different walls that I am sure are not square. Everything got screwed into the walls behind, except for that corner one that needed an L bracket to the ceiling. There will be trim at bottom and top for extra security. You might have noticed the bottom half of these shelves has not been painted yet, just primed. That was waiting to be done in a mustard yellow. Again, these will have doors, and I wanted a little pop of color when you open them. It should show through the woven cane as well, though I may put a thin board behind the cane at some point to protect things better. It just depends on how determined the bugs are. But that is where I'm at. The old pot lights were also changed out for this style from Schoolhouse that I swear must be color matched to this green. One is on a long cord so I can hang it directly over my cutting table. These 2 were their own endeavor, because I actually bought special kits for lights to be able to easily install into old pot lights, and hired a professional to do the rewiring for me, because all of the lights in this house have been something special. It turns out the pot lights were a completely different size than modern standard pot lights, and so he had to rig some stuff to begin with. I am so glad I did not do that. I would have cried. But ideally, I will start being able to use the space this week, though I still need to get all of the trims and doors dealt with. I think I just need a break. I need to sew. I actually need to sew. I have Hobbit stuff coming up and I don't have anything. The second part of this video will be up most likely next month though. The small bathroom might even be done first. So be sure to follow along so you can see those when those come up. And I do want to say, I can attest that a sledgehammer does do very well to help with stress, though maybe not the part that comes after that.